is up? Ada Nation, welcome to DApp Central. My name is Fareed. Thank you all for joining me as a part of this weekend for an awesome live stream. And as always, I will be joined by Josh from Late Game Crypto. It's been a minute since he and I have collaborated. I'm just coming off a break. Josh, so happy to have you back on the channel. How are you doing today?
I am excited to be here. There's been some changes in the market since we last hung out, so it's an exciting time. I'm digging the bull market vibes.
Yeah, it's crazy how quickly sentiment turned around and how quickly people have forgotten some of the issues that we had within the ecosystem, right? Yeah, price appreciation has been really good, and it's just really been interesting to track it all, and not just within the crypto space, but even outside, right? Looking at everybody and the attention that they're now giving, digital assets has really been crazy. So I'm excited to jump into all of that as a part of today's video. But before we jump into the agenda, there's one other person that I cannot forget. His name is Trim Brusette. Trim,
Hey guys.
Lord,
Nice
how
to be
are
here.
you?
Very good, thank you. How about you?
I am doing great, man. Like I said, I'm recharged. The price is going up. I'm doing what I love, creating some content, and I've got two good friends here to help me do it. So I can't ask for more, man. Again, thank you both here for joining me as a part of today's live stream. I'm excited to jump into some of these news pieces here with you all. Now, we've got quite a bit of a crew building up here. We've got Brody Alden tuning in. Thank you very much. We've got SF Zip. We've got Lord asking if we're live. Yes, sir, we are. Ritos in the house all the way from Australia. David from Studio Malacca. We've got Mega Dutcher. We've got Dre. Andre Ricketts. And again, just everybody tuning in, want to take a minute to say thank you all so much. Now, for today's live stream, we do have to keep it to an hour. I want to respect Trim and Josh's time. If you guys are not familiar with Josh from Late Game Crypto, he's a content creator coming up all the way through the entire bear market. So he's been with us here through thick and thin. If you guys are not familiar with him, check out the links down below to the LGC official channel. He creates content surrounding, DeFi protocols, NFT protocols, and most recently, I've noticed an uptick in Cornucopias content. So I do want to jump into some news about Cornucopias as a part of today's live stream as well. And then we've also got Trim, who is an official member at IOG. Congratulations to Trim for making it there. I know that he was doing some freelancing, on some other projects, but this is very well deserved. He's pretty active on Twitter as well. Make sure to go ahead and check out his particular X page and give him a follow using the description down below. Okay, because we are going to try to keep this brief, guys, I'm going to quickly run through today's agenda, and then we're going to go ahead and get your guys' opinions here on a couple of these topics. So first things first, let's take a look at the crypto market. As Josh mentioned, things are moving up and to the right. We cannot skip that. We want to go ahead and just quickly check out where Cardano is relative to some of these other projects launching right now. Now, on top of that, I do want to quickly take a look at the Cardano TVL and dominance. And then I want to put out a quick poll here for the viewers as to where they potentially think Cardano might be heading in the near future. After that, I do want to jump into Ledger Connect. If you guys are not aware, they did recently have an exploit. It does seem to be resolved now, but this was pretty big, and this actually exposed a lot of the protocols on Ethereum to a potential drain. And so I want to jump into exactly, what exactly happened and what we could potentially do to mitigate some of these issues. But I know that Trim also has some pretty strong opinions here surrounding hardware wallets. So I really want to go ahead and get him to weigh in on that portion as well. Now, following that, I want to highlight a recent article breaking down why Cardano is leading the pack. And it really highlights some key things that we've talked about before, but I think people outside of Cardano are finally starting to pay attention to. So let's jump into that. And then last but not least, we've got some Cardano news, right? So we're going to chat a little bit about Cornucopias. We're going to chat about the Maya Protocol, Project Catalyst, and then we'll take a look at some monthly reports for some of the projects currently building on the network. We see Trim's got a little friend there. You want to introduce him to the camera?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I have 3 cats in the room and they are going bananas. So I just got a new outfit for this one today.
Nice.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Yeah, they will be running around during the stream, so I apologize in advance.
It is completely okay. They are more than welcome on the stream. Okay, let's go ahead and jump straight into the market update, and then I will turn it over to you guys to kind of get your thoughts as to where we stand, and then we'll jump into Ledger Connect. So let me quickly share my screen here. And what we're going to be taking a look at is going to be coin market cap. So right now, over the course of the last 7 days, we've got Avalanche coming in at number 1 with over 40% up. We've got Cosmos making a run very recently, up 12%, and then Cardano. So I know that over the course, I should say, of the last week or two, Cardano was leading the pack in terms of the last 7 days. We did see a recent pullback from about 67 cents all the way down to about 62 cents. And we had a pretty big sell-off yesterday, but the market seems to now finally be rebounding. So Cardano back up to about 62 cents, hopefully breaking past the recent high and maybe pushing us up to 70, maybe 80 cents over the course of the next couple of days. But that's exactly where we stand right now. If I jump over here and we take a look here at Bitcoin on the daily, as you guys can still see here, we're still hovering over that 42.5 thousand region, hopefully pushing back up to 43 and then potentially up to 48 as we get ready to break through those bull market doors. If you guys are not keeping up with CCV or Dan from Crypto Capital Venture, he's been doing a really good job of keeping up with all the TA. He's actually my go-to source when it comes to TA. So I did want to quickly touch on that there. Again, we've got the Cardano ADA price here, which kind of is hanging in limbo, again, at around that 62-cent range. In terms of dominance, Bitcoin is still relatively strong here. If I do zoom out, we can see the dominance currently sits at about 53%. What I'm personally going to be looking for is going to be a break here of the trend. And hopefully that will kick off some sort of alt season, giving us a quick rally, not within Cardano, but just within all of these other assets, i.e. everything not Bitcoin or Ethereum. In terms of inflows into the market over the course of the past couple of weeks, as you guys can see there, this is the amount of USDT coming into the ecosystem. Again, not just Cardano, but just the entire crypto space. And that number continues to rise up into the right. So about, let's see here, early in the year, we were somewhere around 66 billion. And as of right now, or as of today, we're now sitting at about $90 billion in terms of USDT flowing into the crypto market. So a lot of people moving their assets into crypto in the hopes of hopefully trading and making some money in the process. So that said, anything stick out to you, Josh or Trim, just surrounding the current crypto market, the price action and where things stand right now? Again, I know that there's been a lot more people talking about Cardano, given the fact that the price has kind of shot up to the top there. But anything that you guys maybe want to touch on here before we jump into some of the next portions of the live stream?
I think this is the kind of activity that is to be expected. It's looking very optimistic with the whole situation with the spot Bitcoin ETF, which is going to really kick things off. I've been doing a lot of research on demographics of non-crypto users, and one of the top, and it's practically tied with the top reason that a lot of non-crypto users don't jump into crypto is because of concerns over regulation. So that move right there, even if you don't buy the argument that people from BlackRock or Fidelity or users that own assets with these companies are going to end up buying Bitcoin, that sentiment is going to change overnight once we get news of the approval of that spot Bitcoin ETF. So that right there, even in itself, is really going to turn things around. And it's looking good. There's a lot of back and forth between BlackRock and the SEC. So they're working together. They're actively trying to get this thing through. There's revisions that there's happening. There's collaboration. So yeah, I'm optimistic about it, and this is just little baby steps that are happening before the real big stuff gets confirmed.
Yeah, as you mentioned there with the revisions, it seems like the SEC is finally beginning to play ball, right? For the longest, it almost felt like we were speaking to ourselves with some of these applications. But the fact that we're now getting some sort of response, I definitely think has been really, really positive and very reassuring. Now, to play devil's advocate, and I also want to get Trim's thoughts on this here. People have been talking about how this could potentially be a buy the rumor, sell the news kind of event, right? Where we see the markets kind of front running this entire narrative upcoming to the actual launch date, where we could potentially see a dump, right? And so I maybe again just want to ask for the both of your guys' thoughts here. Crypto appears to be moving at a much faster pace right now than it did last cycle, right? Again, with people thinking about the ETF and just some of these other things coming up, like the halving, it seems like things are moving a lot faster. So, any maybe thoughts surrounding, what kind of price action we might see after the actual ETF? Do you think that that's going to be bringing in more price appreciation, where we could potentially be breaking the bull market doors well ahead of, the Bitcoin halving, and then potentially breaking all-time highs, like even before the end of the year? Or do you think that this is going to be something that, once we actually have it launched, there's some sort of manipulation where the price kind of takes a dip in order for some of these bigger institutions to kind of fill up their bags before the halving and then before the new all-time high? Trim, any thoughts?
So I think with the with the introduction of an ETF, it can mean a lot of things, right? So I I would urge caution for people, not saying that things are going to go down, or if they're going to go up, but make sure that you're not over leveraging yourself, putting more into it than you're actually able to comfortably lose, right? That's just across the board, that's sort of the most important advice that anyone can give at this point, because when numbers start to go up, people can get this sense of FOMO, and don't do anything stupid, right? Like, I do think that we're early. I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea to learn about these things and dabble into whatever it is that you feel comfortable with, but do make sure that you do make sound financial investments, because at times like these, a lot of people are coming out of the woodwork saying, okay, we're going to the moon, there's going to be Lambos, buy, buy, buy. And, just make sure that you're making responsible financial decisions for yourself. That being said, though, with something like an ETF, it can mean a lot of things, right? So when bigger actors are coming into the scene, that might mean better price stability, which means less upside potential. It could also mean more market manipulation, which could mean retractions. It could mean anything across the board. And something that I figured out sort of last bull cycle is I I watched a lot of this TA stuff, and I tried to sort of do a little bit of things myself, and honestly, it was pure luck. The times that I actually won was pure luck. Had nothing to do with me, drawing lines on charts. It is basically, astrology for crypto bros, right? But that being said, there is some sort of uh, markets do move in some predictable fashion, so there might be something in it, but it's not something that I pay attention to at all. It's I'm happy when the price goes up. I'm equally happy when the price goes down, because it's not really impacting anything. I'm here for the long game, right?
Yeah, seems like David from Studio Malacca definitely agrees with you there. Stating chart astrology, I definitely think that it does bring a little bit of value, especially with different points that you want to pay attention to. Obviously, psychological highs, for example, like our previous all-time high, which is at about $3, and then obviously with support and resistance, I think it also gives you a really good idea as to where to kind of enter and exit. Now, to that end, I definitely do agree with what you said there earlier, Trim. Definitely be careful not to over leverage. You definitely don't want to get wrecked before the actual parabolic portion of the bull run comes into play. Doing a little bit of research leading up to this, it takes us about 46 to 47 months to bottom out. And then we typically have 48 to 49 months between top to top. Now, each of the runs tends to last around 36 to 38 months. And I think right now we're about like a year in. So I would say we're about 33 to 35% of the way through the entire bull market. So we still have, quite a bit of time to go. And again, the last thing you want to do is go ahead and blow up your bags before we even get to the actual fun part where it's quote unquote up only. So I'm excited for that. Josh, any maybe kind of thoughts here surrounding, the ETF news? This is actually really interesting. I got this here pulled up. And I think this kind of touches back on what you were saying there, right? With Gary Gensler yesterday saying that the SEC is now taking a new look at the Bitcoin spot ETF, given some of the recent rulings that Grayscale had. So again, maybe want to turn it over to you, Josh, for any kind of closing comments here before we move things along surrounding the ETF and what your expectations are.
Yeah, I'm perfectly open to the possibility that we could see a drop off near or around or even after the announcement of the spot Bitcoin ETF, but that's going to be really difficult sentiment to deny. Like, maybe there's manipulators out there, but there's going to be a lot of people that are just sitting on a crap load of stable coins that are waiting to get into Bitcoin after that announcement. So yeah, I like it could go down that way. It could see a quick drop off, but like that I think is going to be a really big deal that could, you know, set us off for some pretty bullish momentum. Yeah, it's going to be fast, sharp. I'm excited about it. I very rarely pay attention to any TA stuff at all, because I'm very, very long term. You know, I'm not looking to buy a whole lot more stuff at this moment. I'm pretty well locked into a lot of the positions that I want to be sitting on through the bull market. So yeah, I'm not really like a short term person, but from that perspective, I think that it's going to be insane. This next 1 to 2 months, it's going to be
Yeah.
one for the history books.
I definitely tend to think the same as well. As we just saw there, you know, over $30 billion of USDT coming online, right, in just this year alone. And I think that will probably double, if not triple, over the course of the next 12 to 24 months. Now, that said, we did ride out this entire bear market. It was such a long one, but I'm glad to have made it through and to finally see, you know, not only price moving in the right direction, but also even sentiment moving in the right direction as well. Now, just to kind of show that we are still early, right, at least in my opinion, if we take a look at this here, we've got Google Trends, right, taking a look at the searches for Bitcoin as well as crypto. As you guys can see here, we had these huge peaks off back in September of 2021, right? So this is January, the first Bitcoin top, and then followed by that second double top back here, which was around the November timeline of 2021. Now, that said, that has now kind of dropped off significantly. But as we can kind of see now, there is beginning to become some sort of like pickup here with the search terms for crypto in Bitcoin. I don't know about you, Josh, or even Trim, because I know you guys are both on X. But for myself, for sure, on YouTube, views have been through the roof in the last month alone. You know, content that would maybe get 1,000 to 2,000 views are now getting 4,000 to 5,000 views. The engagement is up. And so what this is telling me is that retail isn't here all the way, but they are beginning to finally get that interest back into crypto again. So really exciting news and really exciting times. And I've said this before, for anybody who wants to become a creator, you know, there's no better opportunity than now. I came in during the bear and it felt like a really long struggle, but it seems like right now, like the attention is there for anybody who wants to become a creator and just kind of get their voice out there. And one thing I love about this space is the fact that nobody has to ask for permission. You know, I didn't ask for permission, Trim didn't ask for permission, Josh didn't ask for permission. You know, if you have a passion for what we're doing here and just for crypto, you know, now is probably the best time to jump into this and to really ride that wave, not just from a financial standpoint, but from a reputation and a brand standpoint there as well. So I did want to quickly touch on that. Let's move things along here. If we jump into TVL for Cardano, in terms of USD value, a new all-time high, $425 million locked on Cardano, one of the only chains right now to break past their all-time high in terms of TVL. Now, granted, our TVL is much lower than some of these other bigger chains, but the trend is what I'm actually focusing on, not the actual dollar amount. So taking a look at the trend, we're moving up and to the right, where a lot of these chains are just finally starting to wake up, letting me know that I think that Cardano is leading the pack. In terms of ADA, valuation, again, this has been up and on the rise all the way back since the beginning of 2023. So this is not surprising to me at all. If we take a look at who is actually leading the ecosystem, Indigo continues to broaden their lead. I believe the first ever protocol on Cardano to cross over the $1 million TVL threshold. So shout out to the Indigo team. MinSwap coming in number 2, aiming to be the second protocol to break through that 100 million zone, followed by Liquid or LQ, Jed, LenFi, A-Starter, MusiSwap, and Vi Finance. What's interesting here is that all of these are in the green by double digits. So really interesting here. Josh or Trim, any projects you guys are maybe keeping an eye out on with respect to TVL, or maybe just with respect to what they're actually developing right now?
I think just generally speaking, I like to see particular DeFi protocols like DEXs, lending and borrowing protocols, be the ones to secure the most TVL, because that's for me the most important metric. Like TVL, I think is a very limited metric that requires a lot of context. And yeah, I think that the best way going into a bull market to be able to facilitate healthy moving price action is that those protocols, the ones that have TVL, the ones that are kind of driving the price, at least as, in terms of what's reflected on chain. So that's what I'm looking for. Nothing in particular, but generally just like dexes and lending and borrowing protocols. Like that's what I want to be seeing.
Yeah, those tend to, I think, do the best anytime that there is a bull market. I know, for example, on Ethereum, we had platforms like SushiSwap, Uniswap, Aave, Compound, all these platforms doing extremely well. So I think that, once we do begin to get that altcoin season within Cardano and that liquidity flows out from Bitcoin, Ethereum over into Cardano and the ecosystem tokens, that platforms like Indigo, platforms like MinSwap, like Dex Hunter, all these protocols that have a lot of liquidity, but then are also at the very forefront of the users, right? Like you can't jump into other Cardano native assets without utilizing a platform like MinSwap. You can't jump into some of these other tokens without jumping into a platform like Dex Hunter. So I think that these platforms, which are going to be the first go-tos, are going to be the ones that benefit the most. Now, another interesting narrative has also been gaming, which we've got two pretty big projects within Cardano, right? One of them being Pavia, and then one of them being Cornucopias, I also think could be poised for a lot of gains. Cornucopias has been making a lot of waves very recently with a recent listing on Gate.io, and then also a listing on Uniswap as well, right? So branching out of Cardano and really getting that exposure at just the right time, in my personal opinion, as more people are starting to focus on that gaming narrative, which blew up really big as a part of 2021 with like Gala Games, which is a studio. We saw Axie Infinity, we saw Illuvium. All these projects got a lot of adoption. I think that, again, we've got our fair share of those in the Cardano ecosystem as well. So again, not financial advice, but definitely make sure to take a look at some of these opportunities because we've been waiting for so long. You don't want to let these pass you up. So Trim, any protocols that you're maybe kind of keeping an eye out on right now, or just any thoughts surrounding TVL and DeFi and Cardano?
Yeah, for sure. So I've seen that it's most cycles is about narrative, right? Like what is the narrative this cycle? I believe in what was it, 2017, the narrative was NFTs and then DeFi. Last round, well, NFTs spiked perhaps even more. This time, sort of all through the bear market, I've been hearing a lot about gaming. DC Spark, for example, pivoted to almost exclusively deal with gaming stuff with Pima Studios and sort of all of their initiatives there. Copy, as you've been talking about, they've been developing really hard. They have a really nice looking game, which I think it's pretty cool because it's a lot of people, well, some people at least, may not look too far outside of the Cardano ecosystem to sort of what's going on more broadly. But it's really fun to sort of see Cardano have some representation on that stage as well, especially with Copy doing this cross-chain thing, having this really, really well made game, right? Like it looks fantastic, right? The Unreal Engine 5, I haven't played it, but I've seen it at some events and stuff, and it's I don't necessarily want to shill that project, too much, but it is good to see that Cardano is sort of playing on a different stage as well, right? It's not just Cardano for Cardano's sake, because it has been some amount of that, but it's really fun to see this. Dega as well is another project that is working on sort of this gaming aspect. I do think that's it's definitely an area to keep your eye on. Along with AI, we've been seeing this Cardano GPT, different kinds of AI applications. We have AGIX, have had those for a while. So yeah, I think there's going to be some interesting things to look at, through this run. Who is actually developing or deploying? It's so fun to see these ancient protocols, right? Like 2021 times, like that started way back in the day when smart contracts were launched, that started development then, that are actually deploying now, like Genius Yield and Axo, and there's some of these really old protocols. It's very fun to see them sort of actually coming live, because some of them sort of pivoted a little bit on the way. I know Genius made this launchpad thing, and yeah, it's good to see this sort of development. There are a couple of existing protocols as well that I think have the right kind of innovation to if people see sort of it's tricky though, because in a bull run, do people look at the tech or do they just look at the TVL and the yield, right? Because those are not necessarily correlated. The best tech doesn't always have the best yield, and vice versa, right? There's first mover advantage, there's marketing, there's these other kinds of things that sort of play into this. So it's going to be interesting to see sort of what pays off the most, right? In this run.
Yeah, I think you made some really good points there. I'm not sure that people are actually paying attention to the fundamentals when the bull market kicks off. I think that the last 2 years have been the time to pay attention to the fundamentals and to build up your bags. And so just me personally, but I could be wrong in speaking on that portion. But I do think that, like you said, Cardano has its own two legs this time around. Looking back at the last bull market, not really a lot developed. Smart contracts were just coming online. Scaling was finally beginning to kick up. And now we're all the way up until governance. And so I'm excited for everything that's going to be happening. And I think that the narrative around Cardano has completely 180, right? People really kind of wrote Cardano off for the longest until the last 2 months. And especially over the last month alone, we've seen Cardano becoming one of the strongest performing tokens with the highest trading volume, compared to some of these other bigger players, for example, like Matic or Polygon, as well as Avalanche and even Solana, right? So it's just really interesting to see people finally turning around on Cardano. And it's really interesting as well because I've been watching some price predictions and people were talking about Cardano only getting up to $1.50, not breaking its all-time high. And I'm like, how can that possibly be? With so much being built on the network. And I mean, I think that persons like myself, Trim, and Josh were kind of glued here to Cardano so we can kind of see it a little bit more easily. But people looking from the outside and seem to kind of get this idea that Cardano is still moving really slow when we now have over 100 to 200 protocols launched. And again, a lot of them coming online, like you mentioned, Axo, next generation trading platform, Genius Yield, optimized yield optimizer platform also coming online, right? So just to name a few there, we've also got Option Flow, I believe, launching on December 20th. And then we've also even got some other platforms as well. So to wrap it up in a nutshell, this is just the beginning, in my personal opinion, and I think there's definitely a lot to come. Now, let's keep things moving. We are at the 27-minute mark. I do want to go ahead and jump into some of the questions here in just a minute. I do see that we've got Paul from Cardano with Paul here. Thank you for tuning in, fellow creator. We will actually be on his channel. So it'll be myself, Josh from Late Game Crypto, as well as Pete from Learn Cardano on December 19th. So make sure to go ahead and tune in. That should be a pretty epic stream with all four of us there kind of chiming in and giving our opinions as to what is actually going on in this space. We've got Menasha also tuning in. And maybe we'll just grab a quick question here. When USDC on Cardano. So interesting that you mentioned this. I know that Charles has spoken about this very publicly before, in the fact that they're asking for a 10-figure amount in order to launch on Cardano. Trim and I did talk about stable coins here on a previous live stream, but to kind of keep this very short, I know that we do have USDC, USDT, and DAI being bridged over from the Wanchain network. I had Temujin Louis on the channel not too long ago. I actually sat down with them at the Dubai Summit, or at the Cardano Summit in Dubai, to talk about stable coins and what they're bringing onto Cardano. Now, bringing it natively without actually being bridged is a whole nother conversation, but in terms of liquidity, that could definitely be huge. And of course, you're also waiting on Mahen, which did have a minor setback, right, in order to finish thoroughly testing their smart contracts, which should hopefully bring on some liquidity there as well. Now, if you guys have any other questions, make sure to go ahead and drop them down in the chat. We will be jumping over to take some of those here in just a couple of minutes. But let's move over into this next topic here. And this is going to be surrounding Ledger. So a pretty big piece of news that came out here not too long ago. This was actually about a day or two ago, surrounding the fact that Ledger was attacked and that they basically have not learned anything since their prior issues, right? So this is not the first time that they've fallen prey to hacks. On top of that, they've also released what was supposed to be Ledger Recover, which the community gave them a lot of backlash for. And then they basically said, hey, we're going to put this on pause. I have not heard anything about Ledger Recover ever since, really letting me know that that's probably a big mistake on their part, that they should have had a temp check with the community before releasing something like that. Now, to sum this up in a nutshell, because again, I don't want to take up too much time here, there was an ex-employee coming in from, or coming out of, I should say, from Ledger, who basically fell prey to a phishing attack, right? So once they fell prey to that phishing attack, some sort of hacker scammer was able to take advantage of their machine or their computer or their session. And this employee still had access to the GitHub repository after leaving Ledger, which I think that was mistake number one there, right? Any employee that leaves a company should have all of their access rights removed or revoked immediately. However, this one was able to slip through. And once they were phished, the hacker basically had access to the GitHub code base or the repo for Ledger. Now, what they did is that they basically injected malicious code. If you guys are not aware, the Ledger team has what they call the Ledger Connect kit. This allows for different protocols to quickly adopt or allow for connections to be made utilizing the Ledger wallet. And so this particular hacker injected some malicious code into the Ledger Connect kit portion of the code, basically meaning that any platform that was utilizing Ledger Connect or the Ledger Connect kit would have been susceptible to this particular attack. What we did see was that over $484,000 in digital assets were drained from users utilizing some of these DeFi protocols on Ethereum. Now, that I believe has risen to over 650K, which, if we do take a look at it, not to downplay this by any means, right, is somewhat small to some of the bigger hacks and issues and just drains that we've seen on EVM compatible networks. I know that we did have one on Curve, which was about like 20 million. We've had some all the way up to hundreds of millions. And so the fact that this is only at about 400 to 600,000 dollars is still relatively small, but not downplaying anybody, because again, if they've taken your money, then obviously that's a big sum and this is a big issue to you. Now, Ledger did announce that they fixed the issue or the problem about 3 hours after the initial reports came out about the attack. And the firm's CEO, Pascal Gauthier, said that this was an isolated incident and noted that they were working with the relevant law enforcement agencies to find the hacker and bring them to justice. What's interesting here is that, again, we are working in an area where code is law. Now, granted, this was not actually done on the blockchain. This was, them taking advantage of the GitHub repository. So I don't agree with that. But I want to get Josh's and Trim's thoughts here on a couple of things. Number one, should the Ledger team finally make all of their code open source, where the community can basically take a look at it and review it? In times past, they've been really hesitant to release everything to the community. And that was actually one of the biggest points of contention when it came to the Ledger Recover, right? People were not exactly sure or able to see exactly how they were breaking down the seed phrases, how they were backing them up, and then how they were recovering them. So that is the first question I want to pose to you guys. And then I've got a follow-up question as well. So Josh, maybe you want to take this one away first. What are your thoughts about Ledger and this recent hack?
Yeah. So it's complicated, the idea of just switching straight to a open sourced model. It's not that simple all the time. Sometimes the code that you're working with is proprietary information. When you open source it, you basically destroy your entire business model. So if you're going to be open sourced, it kind of has to be a thing that you do from the beginning, and make sure that you're also providing something competitive to the market so that somebody else just couldn't come in, take all your code that you spent who knows how much money and hours trying to produce, and all of a sudden you no longer have a unique product that you can bring to people. So that's complication number one. I don't think that you can just switch to an open source model, but I do think that is the best way to do things. Sometimes for different kinds of companies, it doesn't work great. But if there is a way that you can make sure that you're doing it in an open sourced way, and make sure that you're also providing competitive products to the market that other people can't just copy, then that's the best way to approach this area. I feel bad for Ledger. It feels like, not that they're on their way out. They will be around for a little while, but for a long time, they've been, the big players on the block. They've been the go-to hardware wallet solution, and it just seems like, in some cases they're screwing up. In a lot of other cases, they're getting really unlucky, and this is not good for them. There's a whole lot more competitors in the market now in the realm of hardware wallet solutions, and a lot of them are really good and have been doing exactly what I just explained, is from the beginning building their business model based on the principle of being open sourced. And there's a lot of them that are doing really well and coming up in the market. So yeah, I don't know. It's good for competition. It's good for, like, my whole anti-monopoly shtick that I like to push. But yeah, I'm still using Ledger in very small ways. I feel pretty comfortable with that, in part just because this situation didn't really impact Cardano. Seems to be a very EVM specific issue, and yeah, as much as I hate producing this sort of competitive narrative, maybe this whole situation is good for Cardano and helping people to realize a little bit better that the extended UTXO model is the way to go. But yeah, those are just some of my thoughts ran through.
Yeah, I tend to generally agree with what you mentioned there. We do have a couple of people highlighting treasure, right? So I think that this is a huge opportunity for somebody else to potentially eat into their market share. Now, that said, I know that we did recently get the Keystone wallet, which for the longest did not have Cardano or ADA support, which finally added ADA support. I know Treasure and Ledger already had Cardano support, but it'd be really nice to also see additional wallets, again, kind of looking outside of just the EVM space and EVM specific tokens to begin supporting Cardano as well. Now, I do have to get Trim's thoughts here in just a second, because I know that he feels very passionate, or very passionately, about hardware wallets and their use, or just their role specifically within crypto. So quickly, before we jump into that, I do want to pose a quick question to the community. If you guys take a look there at the polls, or at the replay, or the comment section, excuse me, you should see a poll right now asking whether or not you're currently using a crypto hardware wallet. So if you're using something like a Ledger, a Keystone wallet, a Tangent wallet, a Treasure, make sure to go ahead and vote down below. If you're only using a hot wallet, for example, like a Nami wallet, Yoroi, or Eternal, something that's directly on the browser extension itself, then make sure to go ahead and let us know as well. Again, we've got Paul from Cardano with Paul in the house. We've got Smiley One saying, love Cardano content. Keep at it, you guys. We've also got an interesting question from Martin, and maybe I'll let Josh simmer on this one first. Just curious, can anyone here name a partnership that's had any long-lasting impact on a crypto project? So, Martin, we'll come back to that here in just a minute. But Josh, or maybe Trim, feel free to just kind of keep that thought in the back of your heads for now. We've got Pekorski joining on. Appreciate you. We've got Santo. Thank you for tuning in. I definitely appreciate you tuning in. We've got Andre Ricketts. Cardano ADA is going to explode in 2024. New all-time high. The Cardano, or the CNT, the Cardano native tokens, though, will be where you want to be. Yeah, I tend to agree, but I don't think that those are going to move until the very end. So you don't want to miss, the pump in ADA, because again, if you catch the pump in ADA, that then allows for you to even to buy even more of the CNTs right before those begin to run. We've got Bruno Pascoa tuning in. We've got Colin Smith from Math 100. And so let's go ahead and turn this back over to you, Trim. Surrounding Ledger, hardware wallets in general, what are your thoughts here? Please go ahead and weigh in.
So in this case, it was a reasonably unfortunate. Well, it was a phishing attack, right? And they injected some code into not the hardware wallet itself, but literally like just the way that it connects to your computer. So whenever you want to sign stuff, and like the libraries that does that, it seems like they injected some code into there. My general thoughts though on hardware wallets, and this is not Ledger specific, this is just the concept of hardware wallets, is I don't trust them very much. I think it's just too much of it's a very specific type of hardware, and it's just too big of an incentive to do something that could potentially put users' funds at risk, right? Like in such a system, it's not a general piece hardware like a laptop or an iPhone or something that has millions of different types of purposes. It's like very specific to this thing. So first of all, with software, right? What can you do? You can have the software audited, and you can do something like, I don't know, a hash of the code base or something to prove that the version that you're actually running is equivalent to the one that was audited, which is, at least a pretty good indicator that nothing is wrong. But with a hardware wallet, how do you know that the actual pieces of tech that is in this little plastic thing that you have is trustworthy? How do you know they didn't put anything in there that's not supposed to be there? How do you know that the things that are supposed to be there are, working the way you think they are, or, have your best intentions in mind in terms of design? So a lot of times, even if you do hardware audits, right, which is very hard to do on every, you cannot do that on everything single instance, right? You cannot audit every single hardware wallet that goes out. So maybe you do a selection or something like that. But the problem is when you're trying to do audits of products, and this happened in the car industry, and it's happened many, many times. I remember hearing this story about BMW, but I double checked just before the stream, and it's happened to all of the car manufacturers. It's a recurring scandal where when regulatory bodies, right, they want to measure the carbon emissions and the different types of emissions from diesel engines, for example, they have this sort of setup that where they put the car on the thing and they measure it sort of in operation in sort of a laboratory environment. BMW and a bunch of other car manufacturers as well, they installed a software in the car that detected when this test is going to happen, and it withheld emissions. It reduced emissions by by 90% during the testing by literally storing it somewhere else in the car, and then reducing it later. So the cars were audited to be much more eco-friendly than they actually were, right? So it was completely fudging the numbers. So imagine if you're making a product, it's going out in the hands of millions of people, and it's probably going to secure billions, if not trillions, eventually, of assets, right? What is the incentive there? Like, it would be so easy to make like a hardware chip thing that is just not really auditable or very hard to detect, or you're putting something in there that people aren't expecting, like this seed phrase recovery thing that they were talking about a little bit earlier. Like the fact that this device is able to send the seed phrase out means that it can be exploited, right? Like for someone who does a phishing attack, or someone unintentionally doing something, or North Korean hackers putting literally millions of dollars into figuring this out. Like, is this thing able to withstand that kind of attack? I don't know. I have no way of knowing, right? And I have very limited ways of making sure that I'm not exposing myself to more risk than I'm actually aware of. So with something like even a browser extension wallet, right, you can have that audited, the code. You can check that the version that you have is actually accurate compared to the code that has been audited, and that gives you some sense of security, right? Or with something like Daedalus or Lace, for example, that has been developed by the team that actually made the chain itself, you know that, okay, their incentive is at least aligned, right, for your security. Whereas with hardware wallets, okay, why would their incentive be to keep you safe except to sell more hardware wallets? But when enough value is secured by those wallets, that it will 10x 100x the amount that they will ever make by selling more hardware wallets, what is their incentive then, right? That's sort of the short version of the rant that I have on hardware wallets, which is I don't like them, is basically the conclusion. That there are ways of dealing with having completely air gapped, and you can have a laptop, right, which is a much more general purpose device. You can have your sort of wallet set up on that and have it air gapped, never connected to the internet. Transfer transactions via USB key, general purpose hardware as well. USB key into the laptop, sign it there, and take the signed transaction back, and you can do that, right? So, for example, if you want to deal with stake pool, for example, that would be a good way to make sure everything is safe. But for something like degenning, I wouldn't feel safer if I had a hardware wallet than if I just had a hot wallet.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point there. Again, playing on both sides of the equation, because I do know that for the majority of the crypto community, it's like not your keys, not your crypto. And it's always been touted as the best way to keep your assets safe and secure is through some sort of hardware wallet. But this even goes to show that no matter where you store your assets, they are inevitably exposed to some of these issues and hacks, right? Like, I think that we still have a long ways to go until we've got some sort of air gapped system that is like essentially foolproof, right? So, again, really interesting points there. I do want to thank both Trim and Josh for their thoughts on that. Please, guys, if you guys are not already following Josh on his YouTube channel, make sure to go and check him out at Late Game Crypto. Also, make sure to go ahead and follow him on X as well as Trim. Both of them are pretty active and huge contributors into this space. Now, we do have about 15 minutes left for the stream. I do see more and more people joining in. We've got Denicio joining. I appreciate you very much. And then we've also even got Santo asking, do you really want to be your own bank? This raises a really interesting question. I mean, and Santo, like, think about this, right? So we always tell people, hey, get your funds off of Coinbase, get your funds off of Binance. But when Ledger is now getting attacked and people are now draining funds there, you know, how different is this than having your assets on Coinbase or Binance where they're in charge, but then they could also potentially drop the ball as well? It seems like no matter what side of the equation you're on, you are susceptible to some of these issues, which just tells me that we still have a long ways to go until, you know, we have some sort of method that is like completely foolproof. Now, let's see here. We do have a couple more comments coming in here. So this is coming in from Big Tall 06. Try. I'm a little confused. There might be.
I think he meant Trim or she.
Yeah.
Okay.
Trim.
Okay.
How are you storing your? Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Great question, Trim. You want to maybe answer that one?
Yeah, sure. So at the moment, I mean, I'm using hot wallets for the primary wallets or crypto storage. Honestly, I don't have enough in funds in these things that, you know, it warrants a fully secure setup, right? I explained this thing with a, you know, general purpose laptop and the air gap thing and all of this stuff. You could do that. I honestly don't have enough money where it would make sense to do that. I have a wallet with, you know, a lot of degen stuff. I have a couple of other wallets here and there. But yeah, most of the funds I do keep in, you know, the official wallets, right, from IOG, Daedalus and Lace. You know, I know that, you know, okay, I'm biased because at the moment I work for IOG. I didn't always, right? So I did this way before I joined IOG, because, you know, they do follow formal methods for, you know, software development. They have a lot of really good dedicated practices when it comes to making these things. So I do feel safer using that kind of software than I would, you know, even if it is a hot wallet, than I would with most kinds of other things. So, you know, when you hear stuff like with the Ledger that has this seed phrase backup mechanism that, you know, you could opt into, but, you know, could they do that without you opting into? I don't know. How can I find out reliably, right? Those kinds of questions would maybe keep me up at night. So, you know, it's but it's important to keep your seed phrase, you know, very safe. So, you know, what happens if your apartment burns down? Is it safe? And, you know, mine is safe. So I do think that is sufficient sort of security for my, you know, a bag of my size, right? It's not the biggest one in the world. If I did have more funds, though, I would definitely go with something like, I don't know, an air gapped laptop in a bank, you know, safety deposit box or something like that. You know, you could bury it in your backyard if you want. It's lots of ways to increase security if you want, but that's, you know, that's not how paranoid I am. Honestly, I am paranoid when it comes to hardware wallets, but, you know, it's that's the trade-off that I made.
Thank you for the response. I definitely do appreciate that. Looks like Dre actually might have the best solution here when it comes to storing their hardware, their wallet, or their seed phrase, excuse me. So Dre appears to be storing their keys on toilet paper, one word on each sheet.
That's what I do with my Husky wallet. The only way to do it.
Too funny, man. Okay, let's keep things rolling along. I definitely do appreciate everybody tuning in. This definitely does mean a lot. So the next thing I want to jump into are going to be some just some quick updates. I'm not going to dive into this entire article, but I do want to quickly just mention this here. And so this is just surrounding why Cardano appears to finally be getting that much deserved recognition that it should have been getting for quite a bit of time. So let me go ahead and just move this up on the screen here. There's a really nice post coming in from a Cardano community member known as Cardano Fan. So he talks about some of the pros when it comes to Cardano, which include liquid staking, no fees being charged on transaction failures, no slashing, of course, when it comes to staking, no minimum amount to stake, higher emphasis on formal verification, and then the fact that you can actually hold your native assets directly within your wallet, as opposed to them being listed on Ledger, where your wallet is associated with the Ledger, like it is done on EVM networks. Now, at the very bottom, they break down some really interesting pieces as well surrounding the fact that the SEC has really been losing a lot of their cases, which is hopefully going to paint a brighter future for Cardano and some of the other assets that were listed as potential securities in the allegations that came out for Binance as well as Coinbase. Now, towards the very bottom here, there's an interesting piece that I want to highlight, 3 or 4 sentences. So data from the last 30 days alone show a 16% increase in the user base for Cardano and an 83% growth in dApp volume. Now, this is comparing to 13% when it comes to the active addresses on comparing chains and a modest 22% volume increase on other chains compared to Cardano's 83% as well. So this, again, is just a piece of the puzzle. I mentioned earlier, I like to just take a look at the trend. And when we looked at the TVL, that was moving up and to the right. And this particular trend in terms of usage and growth is also moving up and to the right, where Cardano is leading some of these other chains. So again, I think that Cardano has been kind of overlooked for a little bit of time, but the on-chain metrics do not lie. So I maybe want to turn it over to Josh or Trim. What are your guys' thoughts just surrounding adoption and sentiment around Cardano? Have you guys noticed anything in terms of how we're being treated or how people maybe have an outlook on Cardano outside of the ecosystem?
Good. Sentiment is good. That's my general thought. I mean, like we're getting out there a lot. I think that projects, especially ones that are expanding cross-chain or establishing relationships with other people and getting the word out there, and if they have a token available where those people are at, then people are able to get access to it, and they don't really know that it's a Cardano based project. I think that's one of the biggest contributing factors to the advancement of Cardano, is the ones that have been here, that have been building, not based on price, but purely based on passion, not doing it for the money, and they're getting out there and meeting people where they are. I think that's a huge deal for this next bull run.
I really like that as well. Like, going out and making friends is better than conquering enemies, right? In my opinion. And that's what a lot of projects have been doing, which is, really, really good to see. And, just these basic points, in the article that you listed, like, liquid staking and these things, like, if you've been in the Cardano ecosystem for a while, you just take these things for granted. It's just like, well, that's just how staking works. But no, it's really not. In a lot of ecosystems, right? You have a minimum stake if you want to do something. Your tokens are actually locked. So if you put them into staking contract, you don't have those tokens. You can't do anything with those tokens. Like, okay, that is your commitment for a while, right? With those tokens, there's no DeFi or moving them around and sort of taking them in and out of your wallet. No, like that's you for a while. And some of them have 2-week withdrawal times. Some of them have slashing and lockups and all kinds of different things and sort of stuff that goes on with the staking mechanisms that is just so inconvenient. And I'm really happy that other ecosystems are sort of having a look at what it is that Cardano made. Ouroboros is a fantastic protocol. Honestly, like it's really, really good. It's completely liquid staking. You can just move stuff around. Oh, I love it. And if you do have some ADA, make sure that you have it in your own wallet, and make sure that you stake with dApp.
Thank you very much for the shout out there, Trim. I definitely do appreciate it. Of course, we've got over 3,000 stake pool operators. If you'd be kind enough to delegate with the DApp Central stake pool, I'd be more than happy to receive your delegation. That's actually been something that's also been on the rise as of late, right? I remember just trying to shout out the stake pool for the longest and not really getting a lot of traction. But over the course of the last month or two, people have actually been delegating. And I think that's partly because they're now buying into ADA, and people that have just been kind of dormant in the space are finally beginning to look at their bags and realizing, hey, these things are beginning to appreciate again. Let me actually be attentive to the ecosystem before things kind of run away from us and we're in the middle of the bull market with all of this noise around us. So again, thank you for that. We do have Paul saying smash the likes. Definitely make sure to hit that like button if you guys are enjoying this content. Make sure to share it out. And as I mentioned, we will be live on Paul's channel. Myself, Josh from Lake and Crypto, who's here with me right now, and then Pete from Learn Cardano on Tuesday, December 19th. So make sure to go ahead and follow Paul and subscribe to his channel there as well. I've got an interesting piece of commentary here coming in from Andre surrounding our last topic, which was the wallets in the hack, right? So one of the biggest issues in crypto is securing your funds, which I tend to agree. I think everybody else would tend to agree. I feel like this is the unicorn to solve. Hot or cold wallets have both been proven to be insecure. Next to regulation, this is the second biggest issue to resolve. Andre, I completely agree, which is why I said earlier, I feel like at this point, when people even say not your keys, not your crypto, either way, whether you have your keys or somebody else has your keys, there is still a potential issue where you end up losing your funds. So something to definitely keep an eye out on. Now, jumping back into the poll that we just had not too long ago, taking a look at the results, we have over 24 votes, 71% saying yes, that they definitely do use hardware wallets, and 29% saying that they don't. So I mean, I feel like that's kind of expected. Nothing outrageous. I would have been a little bit more surprised if it would have been less people, or excuse me, more people not using hardware wallets, but that seems to be like a pretty decent amount. Now, as we get ready to close down the stream again, I want to respect Trim's time. I want to jump into just some very brief updates. And one thing that you mentioned there earlier, Trim, was the fact that you want to make friends instead of overtake your enemies, right? What that kind of screams to me there is interoperability. And so with things, for example, like the Midnight Partner Chain model, as well as this recent protocol that I just covered, I think could be really big in terms of us making friends. So we had a proposal, and I released a video about this actually yesterday, surrounding the Maya protocol. So Maya is aiming to be it's not a bridge, it's a decentralized exchange, right? But between different L1s or between different networks. So if you want to swap between ADA and Bitcoin or Ethereum and ADA, you can utilize a platform like Maya or the Maya protocol in order to do that. Now, what we have is the Maestro team, which has now put out a proposal for Project Catalyst to actually begin, or to potentially begin, integrating Cardano into the Maya platform. So again, you could imagine if you have Bitcoin in your Bitcoin wallet, right? And you want to swap that over into ADA, right now you have to jump over to Binance or Coinbase and then actually swap your Bitcoin for ADA and then send that ADA into your ADA wallet. Utilizing something like Maya, this is all being done in a decentralized way and in a permissionless way where you don't have to bring any funds to a centralized exchange. So this could actually be a huge competitor to some of the bigger exchanges that we have right now. Now, granted, they only focus on swapping a couple of assets right now, but as their ecosystem grows, I could definitely see this being the way to jump between different L1s or different networks without having to jump to a centralized exchange where 9 out of 10 times you have to give them some sort of KYC information, which might be, your birth date, your driver's license, your passport, whatever the case is. So definitely make sure to go ahead and check out my latest video. It breaks all of this down, exactly what Maya is doing, and their bridgeless swaps. Again, to wrap this up in a nutshell, let me see if I've got the slide up here. There it is. What they're aiming to do is basically lock up whatever funds you send to. So let me just back up. Let's say I want to swap from Bitcoin over to Cardano. I would have my Bitcoin wallet with my Bitcoin stored in there. From there, I would send my Bitcoin utilizing the Bitcoin ledger, right, to an address which is managed by one of the Maya node operators. So you could imagine that on every network, they have a quote unquote vault or potentially a wallet that is used to store funds on that specific network. Once they receive the Bitcoin on the Bitcoin network, they're going to verify and actually agree that I sent over the Bitcoin into the correct Bitcoin vault on the Bitcoin network. They're then going to turn around, and these node operators actually run nodes for all the blockchains that they support. So you could imagine them, running a Cardano node as well. And there'd be some sort of Cardano vault or some sort of Cardano wallet that then is used to send Cardano, or the equivalent amount of Cardano that was sent in terms of Bitcoin earlier, to a Cardano native wallet or to a Cardano native address there. So you're swapping from Bitcoin to Cardano or any other asset, right, without ever having to jump on Coinbase or Binance. So this, I think, is really, really huge in terms of adoption and potential growth. Right now, they've got over $57 million in terms of TVL, and them connecting to Cardano could actually bring in a big new friend, right? So again, I really like what you said there earlier, Trim, about, us making friends. And this, I think, could be a potential partnership that sets us up in just the entire blockchain space, because again, this is following the ethos of crypto, which is to be decentralized and to be completely permissionless. Now, I do also want to jump into Cornucopias very quickly here, and I'll give Josh the opportunity to kind of speak about his bullishness on Cornucopias, right? But Cornucopias is officially getting listed on Gate.io. I know that Paribus is listed on there. I know that Iagon, I believe, is also listed on there. And we did also see Noom getting listed on Bitrue. So more and more Cardano native tokens getting listed on some of these centralized exchanges, which is obviously great for exposure. If you're not already aware, they're available on probably all of the current dexes on Cardano right now. But to see them listed on centralized exchanges lowers the barrier of entry for anybody who may not actually want to dive headfirst into the ecosystem, and they're maybe just kind of sitting on the outside. Again, everybody's got a different risk tolerance and a different technical ability. But this, I think, makes it really simple for people that aren't too technical to create an account on a centralized exchange and then begin to get exposure to Cardano native tokens, for example, like Cornucopias. Now, on top of that, the Cornucopias team did also release a slide deck surrounding nodes, which I think will present a really big opportunity for anybody who's looking to not only contribute to the Cornucopias network, but also just become an operator, right? So very similar to the Cardano stake pools, you could run a node server, which basically distributes parts of the games to different people. And depending on how much data you're distributing, right, you're then rewarded in the Kopi token for doing that. Really interesting model. We've seen other gaming platforms, for example, like Gala. They've got their own gaming nodes as well, where they reward people with the Gala token. And so I think that this is a very viable option. And I think that they're actually relatively cheap compared to other nodes that I've seen going up for sale. I know like the Gala one, even though it was during the bull market peak, was selling for about $40,000 to $50,000, whereas the Cornucopias nodes are coming in at just about $400. Now, depending on how early you get into the sale, they will have fluctuating prices, but they've really been killing it here over the course of the past couple of weeks, not just with the actual development of the game, also with different listings. Again, they also got listed on Uniswap, and then most recently, the release of their nodes. So, Josh, I know you're a huge component of Cornucopias. You're a member of the Knights Guild. What's your sentiment like for Cornucopias? And then could you maybe also talk to us a little bit about the upcoming event, which I think is like late next week, which is the Breaking Corn event?
Oh no, the Breaking Corn event is happening right now as we speak. Yeah, they're over there trying to break the Corn server so that they can find its weaknesses, understand where they can improve so that they can be prepared to handle tens of thousands of players at once. That's happening right now. I am extraordinarily bullish on Cornucopias. It is like this. The token listing, I think, is a big move that needs to be made for any project that plans on being successful in this space. But centralized listing exchanges doesn't guarantee that people are going to buy the token. What it does is it provides a way, an access point for people when they hear about the token to be able to go and purchase it in whatever ways are most accessible to them. That's why this listing is really huge. And we're getting a lot more exposure to Cornucopias, a lot more people talking about Cornucopias. Just the other day, I think there was a live stream over on Crypto Banter, and that had something like 100,000 views on it. And one of the panelists said Cornucopias is their most bullish pick for the gaming ecosystem. And that's somebody that I don't really watch. It's not a Cardano dedicated influencer or anything. It's just somebody that saw what was happening and got really bullish on it. I think that the whole node thing is one of the ways that Cornucopias is going to stick out from the competition, in the realm of gaming, because other projects like this is just like the perfect intersection of understanding the needs and experiences of gamers while also understanding what gets people in crypto excited about things. This is the way that people can earn off of the expansion of the project, the growth of everything that happens, but it's also a very unique way to enable gamers to download large game files much faster than they ever have. I don't know how many people that are watching are avid gamers, but if you have a game out there that's like 100 gigabyte download, depending on how good your hardware and internet and stuff is, that could pretty easily take an hour plus to download that game. What these nodes do is it enables the accessibility of the game files to be downloaded at different places in the world so that people can download them faster. So according to the tests that they've been doing and their expectations of how it'll perform, people will be able to download like 100 gigabyte game in like 5 to 10 minutes. And that's huge for gaming experience. It's this kind of stuff. I don't know if I could call this technology an invention or if I could call it an innovation, but whatever it is, it's different than what other gaming projects are doing. And this kind of stuff is really going to send them off. And those access points, that's really going to help to get people flowing into this project. So they're doing everything right. I can't rave about them enough. It's ridiculous.
Very well said. I definitely think that they're a forward-thinking team, and they continue to execute on all ends or on all facets. Now, I do see that we are a little bit over time. I know that I wanted to respect Trim's 1 hour threshold. So, Trim, I do want to give you a second to maybe just give us your closing thoughts here before we let you enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate the opportunity to get back on here. I really love these streams. It's a great time, and it's I do think that for now that we're sort of approaching the next sort of market cycle, the people that have been here throughout the bear market and for a while, right, like those are the people that are likely to remain here after the price starts, if it goes up and starts going down, these are the guys that are going to stay here after that. So I do think that taking stock of sort of who's been here, who remains, and sort of I've seen a lot of new people already come into the space, which is fantastic. It's great, but it's also very important to keep in mind. Okay, who has the tenacity to stick around. But it's been a great opportunity. I unfortunately do have to go. I'd love to stay on and talk, especially about Catalyst. The key takeaway there is remember to vote. I have a lot of proposals that I really want to shout out, but maybe we can take that closer to the actual voting times. But yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity to come back on.
Yeah, it is always a pleasure to have you on. I definitely look forward to having you on future streams. And like he said, ladies and gentlemen, make sure to go ahead and stay active within the community as a part of Project Catalyst. There's going to be the voting coming up very, very soon. And then, of course, he's also got the Intersect MBO for anybody who's interested in governance. Now, I am also going to get ready to kind of just go ahead and close things up. But Trim, you are more than welcome to drop. Again, have a wonderful weekend. Now, let's just take a couple of questions here. I know that there was one that came up earlier from Martin about partnerships and whether or not they had any long-lasting impacts on crypto projects. And I'll kind of maybe just take a shot at this very first, and maybe Josh, I'll turn it over to you. We'll take 1 or 2 more questions, and then we'll go ahead and just kind of close up the stream here. But in terms of partnerships, I mean, I feel like there's been plenty that have been made over the course of the last year to 2. I think some of the biggest ones that I've seen have been partnerships that include Endmaker, and most recently, them actually partnering up with Emergo. Now, this is pretty fresh still, but I think that the impact that they have on the community is big, and the fact that they're now partnering up with Emergo to tokenize more and more assets and just bring them outside of just what is being done here on Cardano, I think could be huge. And so there's no one specific partnership that comes to mind here, Martin. But I definitely think that, as Trim mentioned, it's much easier to work alongside our fellow builders as opposed to trying to do things on our own. So I know that there are a lot of partnerships. I'll maybe give this a little bit more thought, but that is one that I definitely think that will have a huge impact on the crypto and just Cardano space moving forward. Josh, are there any specific partnerships that you maybe want to highlight here?
Actually, I'm going to answer this question a little bit differently. Instead of identifying a particular partnership, I'm going to present you with a criteria of like what makes a good, long-lasting partnership. Because I mean, like in the state of the industry right now, even Cardano, that's only been around for like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years or something. We haven't seen anything long-term yet. Long-term hasn't come, especially in the methodical approach that Cardano is taking. Actually, Fareed, I liked the Endmaker example that you brought up, because that, I think, displays the criteria a heck of a lot better. It's the partnerships that are in it, that are there to serve, and like what it is that they do and how they make money. That's like that's what makes them committed. Endmaker is behind so many different NFT projects in the space. Endmaker handles all of the infrastructure for like Book.io, which has been incredibly successful in the Cardano ecosystem. They handle a whole portion of the NFT ecosystem in Cardano, and there's a lot of projects. They're doing a lot of things in that space. So I'd say, like, when it comes to looking at the potential for what makes a good partnership, it's those kinds of things, that the ones that are committed, that are deep into it, that are really providing everything, and they have a real stake in making sure that happens. That's what makes a good partnership. As far as long term and like what makes it, that we'll see. That's I think TBD.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. There obviously needs to be some sort of benefit to both parties, right? You don't want it to be a one-sided kind of partnership. And so I think that making sure that both parties feel valued in terms of giving benefit, but then also receiving benefit, is going to be key for some of these long-lasting and blossoming relationships that we're starting to see come out of the works now. Take a couple more questions, then we're going to close this down. We've got JSK asking, what is your take on the Cherry token / project? So I recently did have a member from the team here on the channel. I believe they launched on the mainnet about a week or two ago. In terms of what they're bringing, I mean, bringing DeFi, right? Which I think is very much needed in this space. We're still super early on right now. In terms of the tokenomics, I don't necessarily want to weigh in on that there. I probably need to do a little bit more due diligence and research surrounding that. But in terms of some of the features that I've seen that they're bringing on, they do seem to be doing things a little bit differently than some of these other protocols that are building right now in Cardano. So Josh, maybe any quick closing thoughts here surrounding the Cherry Lend project and what they've built so far?
I don't disagree with what it is that they're doing. It seems to me like they don't bring a whole lot substantially new to the table, compared to much of the rest of the ecosystem. It's really about making sure that the code, the DeFi protocols, are accessible to people, and replicating that is I don't know. It's wouldn't be my choice of moving forward with the business, but I also don't disagree with it. So neutral, I guess.
Awesome. Thank you for the honesty there. Definitely do appreciate that. As we get ready to close this down, I'm going to take one last comment here. This is coming in from Andre Ricketts. The partnership between Cardano and Midnight will have a lasting impression on our ecosystem, being the template and example for other large corporations to follow. Yeah, I tend to agree. This is just one of many potential services coming online, aiming to leverage and utilize Cardano's biggest piece of power, which is our decentralization in our network uptime. So Andre gets really solid commentary there. I definitely do appreciate you guys tuning in. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that will bring us to the end here for today's stream. I appreciate you all tuning in. Josh, again, thank you for your time. If you guys are not already following Josh from Lake and Crypto on YouTube, the link to his channel is down below. That said, we are going to go ahead and wrap up. I wish you all a wonderful weekend. I want to thank you all for taking the time to just kind of tune in chatter and just hang out with us here as we are enjoying some of the positive bull market vibes after such a long and brutal bear market. That said, that will do it here for today's stream. And on that note, we will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.